I think there is a great deal of contempt for men in our society, and I don't mean it in a kind of touchy-feely way, like as if I sense it. I'm talking about in our institutions. I've really had a good look over the years at our educational, legal, social service, health, and family court. Worst of all, bias against men is pandemic in our society.
Okay, so the biggest divide between what's called the MRAs, the men's rights activists, and feminist activism is really very simple, and that is that feminists blame all social ills, all the problems that we have, really, especially regarding marriage and the family, education, jobs, and the like, on the patriarchy. You know, whenever something goes wrong, it's the man's fault, and it's the system, and it's all messed up. When men's rights activists come together to truly address these problems, all they're interested in is just solving the problem. And these people that were on the panel at this press conference the other day are in the trenches in various arenas, and they are doing great work to solve problems completely irrespective of ideology. So if you're married to an ideology that says the patriarchy is real and that women are always the victims, and you never are able to look at women in any kind of critical way and admit that they can do wrong too, you can't solve these problems regarding boys and men.
Well, 10% of family of custody of divorces with children are contested. 10% of all cases. Most people do settle, and many of them very amicably. They make their own arrangements. More power to them. But in the 10% that are contested, and that's still many thousands, 90% of them will go to the mother for sole custody, and that doesn't mean the other 10% go to men, by the way. Sometimes the CAS takes them, or other family members, or whatever. So men get about 6%.
Stating that there's no differences between women and men, and the fact that the patriarchy is alive and well and, out to get you, so to speak, and we have to, in order to achieve equality, redo our entire system. So the point is, anytime someone tries to speak out and address the real issues that revolve around the male-female relationship, marriage, family, domestic violence, by the way, goes both ways. People don't know that because feminists own the dialogue when it comes to these topics. The assumption is that women are always victims and men are the perpetrators. That is absolutely statistically false.
What I remember was violently resisting, all of us, in different ways, the idea that the university could be in loco parentis, as it wanted to call it. So the university would play the role of your parents. And if you had a beef against another student of any kind, it was considered kind of babyish to want to go to the dean the entire time and complain about your feelings. But now it seems to me that not just on sexual matters, but on quite a lot of other things lumped under the heading of correctitude, everyone in the university seems to want to have more authority over themselves, to have more complaints procedures, to have more therapy and more litigation. And I would say, for heaven's sake, there's enough of all that in the wider society as it is. And you can't justify this by reference to microorganisms, I'm sorry to say. It's not viruses that are making people behave this way. It's a regression to infantilism that's going on. And I think it's a real shame. I think objectification is an absolutely stupid word, and I'm fed up with it. I think it's being overused like empowerment. When I look at that picture, if you want to hold it up again, I don't regard Miss Crawford, what I see there is not just a sexual object, though undoubtedly she is an object. Everyone else is an object to everyone else. But I also see a subject. She's a great subject. Sex is a great subject.
Right.
Women are, in male conversation, a tremendous subject. I'm told the same is true the other way around.
And well,
it's subjectification. In other words, if people talk a bit less about themselves and how the personal is political, and the whole area of contestation is all to do with their own psyche and their own needs and dreads and feelings, and a bit more about society and others, I think we might get on a lot better.
Tell you a little-known fact about our health system. Certainly in Ontario, there are at least 25 health units, hospitals, clinics, and whatever. They have a policy. It's called Best Practices, put in by the Registered Nurses of Ontario. All 186,000 of them approved this. If a 12-year-old girl comes into a hospital for any reason whatsoever, a broken wrist, a tooth knocked out, whatever, she goes through a protocol, and she's asked if she's been subject to sex abuse now or in the past, so that they can, intervene.
Of any age?
Well, children, I mean, we're talking about 12-year-olds and up, women. They call them women, but at 12, a girl is still a child, especially by Child Services calls them children up to the age of 16. So from 12 on, they get these queries. and to elicit just in case. And if that is the case, then they can then look into it, and she'll have therapy or whatever is necessary to deal with her case. But not boys. So I'm wondering, is that because 12-year-old boys have never had sex abuse in the past, or in the present, or may in the future? And I did ask the head of the registered nurses. I wrote a column about a few years ago, and I said, what's this about? I mean, why wouldn't you do both? Well, we really don't know a lot about boys and how they react to sexual abuse. She didn't deny that it happens to boys, and under the age of 12, by the way, it's almost equal. Boys and girls, when they're quite young, are almost equally abused.
There should be equality under the law. And that is an argument that I have made in all sorts of other fields ever since. There should be equality under the law. Those who argue for discrimination have got to make the argument about why it is a good thing. And in that sense, therefore, I stand for equality, but I'm not a feminist, and I do not think that the ways of feminism, the arguments of feminism, are the way forward. I actually object to feminism, Madam President, on two main areas. One is cultural, and one is practical. Now, the cultural side. Well, we've heard a little bit of this tonight. You see, the problem with the kind of feminism that we used to hear back in the 60s and the 70s and many years since, the kind of feminism actually has one very big problem for a woman like me. It's the kind of feminism that actually hates men. And I have a problem with that. Now, the cultural side of this, I think, has real problems. Because one of the problems with this idea that we are equal to men and that we should imitate in some way the male thing, is that it denigrates and diminishes the life experience and history of most women, even in a country like this. Most women in a country like this actually want to become and do become mothers. Most women in a country like this want and are lucky enough if they get long-term commitment from a man to a man. I think so highly of marriage that I've been married twice. I think so highly of marriage, of course I would have voted for equal marriage for gays or anybody else, just about. But the experience of most women does not conform to that feminist picture. And the feminists seem to feel that the women who make other choices are making wrong choices. And the net result of that, in the 40, 50 years that we are celebrating since, is that much progress has not been made.
My purpose is to lob bombs. My purpose is to be a fire starter, right? In an outrage culture, I think the appropriate response is to be outrageous, because what I want to do is smash political credibility.